Welcome back, everyone. We're here today with episode 2062 of the Cabral Concept on our intermittent fasting based topic. So excited to be able to bring you today's show. And the reason is I want to go over the single biggest intermittent fasting mistake that people are making. This is the one that is not allowing you to get the maximum benefits. So in my practice, we see so many people using intermittent fasting. We, of course, recommend it for the individual, 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours on a daily basis. And then we do longer ones once a week, once a month, and then every 3 months. So what we want to look at is this. And again, I'll link up shows so if that's kind of new to you on how long your fast should last each day, and then once a week, and then each month. We'll link up those shows today at 2062. So you can just go to stevencabral.com/2062, and that will be all the show notes, all the links for you. You can watch the show on video there if you're listening to this on iTunes. And of course, you can watch it on YouTube as well. So this is really important because people are using intermittent fasting to lose weight, to definitely burn more body fat, to be able to better control blood sugar levels, to help with certain diseases of the body. They're using intermittent fasting to get deeper into autophagy for longevity-based reasons, right? So that they start to kill cancer cells the deeper into autophagy they get. They're using it to promote collagen growth for their skin. They're using it for short-term growth hormone, natural growth hormone principles. They're using it for digestion. There's so many reasons why you may want to use intermittent fasting. But again, if you're doing intermittent fasting right now, you don't need me to convince you that it's probably a good idea. The problem is that many people are not really in a fasted state, just like many people are not in a real ketogenics-based state. So if you're doing a keto-based diet, I mean, there's so few people that are actually in a state of ketosis doing a keto-based diet. This show is not about that, but I have to give you a little quick tip. If you are eating large amounts of protein on a keto-based diet, you're not in ketosis. Because believe it or not, protein very easily can break down amino acids and be used as carbohydrates, essentially as glucose, in order to provide a fuel source. So it's not a difficult process for your body to convert proteins to carbohydrates or proteins to specific simple carbohydrates like glucose. I've gone over that before in the podcast. I don't want to get too deep into it, but again, so many people are not getting the benefits of ketosis if they want to be in ketosis because they're not actually on a ketogenic based diet. I don't recommend long-term ketosis. I've spoken about that many reasons why, many times before. I've talked about how there's no long-lived populations on keto-based diets. That doesn't mean there aren't tribes and communities of people on keto-based diets, but they typically don't live past 67, 68 years old, and you can look at the research on that. Anyway, we use it short-term only. A lot of people think ketosis means intermittent fasting. Totally different. You can be on any diet in the world, Mediterranean, paleo, primal, keto, high carb, low carb, whatever you want, and still participate in intermittent fasting. So the majority of people in our practice, besides those with hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, or real adrenal-based issues or deep thyroid-based issues, they're going to be, in our program, they're going to be on a 12-hour minimum intermittent fast. So when we look at this, we're really not, again, debating whether intermittent fasting is great or not. It is. The problem is that most people make the mistake that they're actually in a fasted state when they're not. So that's what I want to go over today. The single biggest intermittent fasting mistake is people actually believing they're in a fasted state. That's the problem. Okay, there's two reasons why. I'm going to keep this really straightforward today because I want you to be able to take these 2 bites away and then actually begin to implement them. The first one is this, and I went in depth on episode 1965. So we're going to link up a bunch of shows for you today. I'm going to go over basically the different types of intermittent fasting or fasting in general, the daily, the weekly, the monthly, and then the quarterly. So I'm going to go over that. I'll link that up today at stevencabral.com/2062. I'm also going to link up episode 1965 because I went over about 24 to 36 different foods that people don't actually think kicks them out of the state of intermittent fasting or fasting. So for example, Many people wake up in the morning and they might have a coffee and they might put some MCT oil in it, or they might put some butter in it, or they might put some type of fat in it. You have to understand that if this has calories, and fat calories absolutely do matter, it's going to kick you out of a state of fasting. And the reason is this: your body's perfectly fine with saying, great, we've got some calories here as fat. We're going to use those as a fuel source, and we're going to also kick on digestion for that. So fat needs to be digested, needs to be broken down. That takes energy, and fat, believe it or not, is more difficult to digest than a simple carbohydrate or micronized protein powder or something like that. Now, I'm not saying, again, any of those things will kick you out of a state of fasting, but maybe you're okay with that. That's basically what I'm trying to get you to think about today, because you can be okay with that. I'm going to bring this full circle at the end as to what to do, what the best things that we've seen work in our practice. And again, it's hundreds of thousands of people now. But is that it's going to kick you out of a state of fasting. So if you have coffee and 3 tablespoons of butter or 3 tablespoons of coconut oil, that's 360 calories. That's minimum 360 calories, because it's about 12 grams of fat per tablespoon. And that's a lot to break down. And it's also, although you might enjoy it with your coffee, you just can't say you're in a state of fasting anymore. You can do it, but you're no longer in a fasted state. I know a lot of people like to cherry pick certain research studies and say, oh no, it still does this, this, and this. You're not in a fasted state if you're consuming those calories, especially if those calories are going to take a bit to break down. So I just don't want us to pretend that if we're eating food, and I'm not saying you can't do MCT oil. What I'm saying is you're just not in a state of fasting anymore. Okay. So there is a difference. So again, if you do that at 8 a.m. in the morning and then you don't have anything again until lunch, you didn't fast until lunch. I'm not placing any judgment, because I'm not even saying that you should be doing that, right? That you should fast until lunch for all people. But what I want to share with you is that you're not in a fasted state. So this is really important to understand, is that a lot of people like to cherry pick certain amounts of science and be like, hey, look, you don't get a jump in blood sugar by doing just some butter or coconut oil, or pick your favorite fat, yak butter with your coffee in the morning. Well, here's the thing. You do not have to spike blood sugar to stop a fasted state, right? Really important that we understand that. You didn't get a spike in blood sugar. So let's say for me, I can eat a banana and it doesn't jump my blood sugar above 100, really, at all. And definitely not above 120, where you would say would be typical for me, 110, 120. So if I eat a banana, am I in a fasted state? Most people would say no. But it didn't jump my blood sugar. So is that okay? Or the other thing is then going back to it. So the same thing is, if you have MCT oil because it's fat and it didn't jump your blood sugar, are you still in a fasted state? Why does fat not allow for or allows for a fasted state when carbs don't, even if those carbs don't spike your blood sugar? Now, a lot of people might not believe, well, of course a banana is going to spike your blood sugar. Not necessarily the case. We have to understand that. Different people, their blood sugar reacts differently based on the actual food that's consumed. And I know plenty of athletes and plenty of Vata body types or ectomorphs where it doesn't spike their blood sugar. No more so than having, some chicken or some meat or just some coconut oil, right? So we have to understand there's a little bit of bio-individuality there. But what I'm really getting back to is this. It's not just about blood sugar. That's not it at all. It's the actual calories coming in and your body having a fuel source, an alternate fuel source beyond what is already in your body in that fasted state. So what we're trying to do with intermittent fasting is simply be in a fasted state if it's for a shortened period of time. And I'm going to get to exactly how to pull this together in just literally 3 minutes. So the second way because the biggest mistake is people thinking they're in a fasted state. So the first one is this, is eating calories and believing you're still in a fasted state because it only came from fat, because people are telling you that that's true. It's simply not true, right? The second is this, is consuming caffeine or certain nootropics that are stimulants in the morning and you think you're still in a fasted state. Now, this one you may be, okay? That's what I want to share with you. You may or you may not be. And the only way to know this one specifically is to test. It's not about just reading a label. It's about actually testing, okay? So if you are going to have even just a cup of black coffee, let's say in the morning, because you're saying, okay, it's 0 calories, 0 sugar, 0 carbohydrates, 0 fat. I'm just having my tea or my coffee in the morning. Okay. I have no problem with that. Okay, no problem with that. It's not the ideal, that's for sure. I'm going to be talking about that because it's a stimulant on the nervous system with no food. It's just to a much greater degree when I prefer people to have that stimulant after breakfast, but that's a topic for a different day. Okay, so here's the thing: how you can prove to yourself you are still in a fasted state or not in a fasted state, because glucose does matter as well as calories, right? So calories, not in a fasted state, but spike in glucose from no calories, still not in a fasted state. And here's why. So let's say you have that cup of coffee, or you're super stressed first thing in the morning, getting the kids ready for school, preparing, getting in traffic. If you test your blood sugar 20 minutes after the coffee, 30 minutes after coffee if you want. And I would do it 30 minutes after. Or, getting the kids out the door. And you can just, again, you can use a continuous glucose monitor like I've recommended or talked about in the past. I just did a review on it. I talked about what I learned over the last 30 days from wearing a CGM. That was episode 2041. And then I did a big review on the continuous glucose monitor that I used on episode 2045. So here's the thing though. Even if you don't get a continuous glucose monitor because it is expensive, let's say you don't do one. Let's say you just use a $20 glucometer and just do a finger prick, and you put a little drop of blood on a tiny little cartridge that you insert into this little device called a glucometer. Again, $20, that's it. And I'll link that up here as well. You can find all these resources, by the way, at stephencabral.com/resources. It's all my favorite companies from this industry. Of course, I love this health industry, so I recommend the best brands out there. So here's the thing. If your blood sugar is at 120, after that coffee with no calories in it, with nothing in it, or just from stress in the morning, you're no longer in a fasted state. So I want you to understand that stress from a stimulant, a nootropic, or coffee, tea, or from stress of life, if it spikes your blood sugar, it does that because when you're getting the fight or flight, it basically breaks down stored glycogen, typically in the liver first, if not in the muscles, and then it will bring that stored glycogen as glucose into your bloodstream, which raises your blood sugar. I've done many different shows on this. If this is new to you, I would love to, of course, teach you more about this. There's a video at stephencabral.com/BRMI, which has been helpful for a lot of people to understand how people can basically gain weight by not even eating carbs because of all the stress and how it dysregulates hormones. But it's really important to look at it because, again, you're not in a fasted state. Now, why am I bringing this up? All is basically around breakfast, because essentially people are thinking that they can skip breakfast, or they're skipping breakfast when they're really not skipping breakfast because they are eating calories, or they're super stressed in the morning, or they're taking in some type of stimulant that does this. So we just have to be careful that we are not overdoing the things that would kick us out of a fasted state. So my highest recommendation is this, honestly. In a Western-based mentality and culture, we're always trying to push things to the limit, which means we're trying to say, hey, if 10 hours is good, if 12 hours is good, 16 or 24 must be better, right? So here's the thing. That's not always true, because what we do is we don't want to get one day's worth of benefit. We want to get it every day. So the goal really would be 12 to 16 hours of fasting per day. That's really the sweet spot. Again, we work with hundreds of thousands of people, and that's what we found. And the best way to do that is to not necessarily skip breakfast. And I know that this is going to be completely counterintuitive to what you've heard from a lot of other people, but honestly, it works just as well, and you get to eat breakfast, which is really nice. Now, I'm going to be talking about this on tomorrow's show. I do hope that you tune in for that, because a lot of people are dealing with leptin resistance now, and I want you to understand is that if you're trying to burn body fat and repair your hormones, thyroid, estrogen, etc., testosterone, you'll want to tune into tomorrow's show, because that can happen from a starvation-based mode of the body. So the truth is this: the best way to do an intermittent fast is to stop 3 to 4 hours before bed. Ideally 4. Believe it or not, you'll see a good increase in heart rate variability, which is your basically resistance to stress, natural resistance to stress, the more hours before you go to bed. So if you go to bed at 10, ideally try to stop eating by 6. Now you have from 6 until midnight, that's 6 hours. right? And then if you don't eat breakfast until 8 a.m., that's 14 hours. That's what I do every single night. That's what I try to do. Sometimes on the weekend, I might be out to dinner with friends, with family. I don't finish dinner until maybe 7:30, maybe 8 o'clock. Okay, what am I going to do? Well, basically, I'm going to have breakfast that next morning at 8, 9 o'clock. So it's 12 hours the next day, 13 hours. And that's okay, right? Because I'm not looking at one day. I'm looking at 365 days a year. And 6 out of 7 days a week are from 6 at night to 8 in the morning. And it's worked really well for my body. It works excellent, works great for my body. You might want to go a little bit longer. You might want to go to 10 a.m. Or maybe for you need to break your fast within an hour of waking up. Maybe you need to break your fast at 6:30 or 7 a.m. or 7:30. And that's for you, and that's okay. That's where that bio-individuality comes in. But I'm telling you right now, bottom line is this: you can keep your blood sugar controlled by going for a walk after dinner. Most meals is great, but after dinner, or just cleaning up the house after dinner. Keep that blood sugar from spiking after dinner. You're going to right away keep blood sugar levels balanced. You'll be healthier. You're going to be able to stop eating a few hours before bed, ideally 3 to 4. Then you're going to be in bed for hopefully 8 hours. So it's not difficult to get that 12 hours, right, to 14 hours of intermittent fasting on a daily basis. That's what we've seen. Well, you're welcome to do longer as long as it's working for your body. And again, hopefully these tips helped here today. So of course, if any of these shows are helpful, please do feel free to share them with anyone you believe they can serve. And of course, we'd love to hear from you in the comments on YouTube or Instagram. Tell us what you thought. And of course, any ideas for future shows. Take care, everyone.